Welcome to the Rough Characters podcast. My name is Philip Overby.
I'm John Palladino.
And today is our very first episode of this new brand spanking cool ass podcast where we're going to talk about all sorts of different things related to fantasy, sci-fi, games, movies, TV, blah, 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 etc., etc. Today's wonderful topic will be about something near and dear to both of our hearts. That is the genre of Grimdark. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and then at the end of the episode, we're going to introduce one of our recurring games we're going to do. Basically, our characters are going to get killed every episode. Yay! So, first off, John, anything happening in the news you want to chat about?
Well, today that we are recording happens to be the day that Disney just had a big event where they released a whole bunch of trailers for different things, and they just put out a whole bunch of trailers for new Star Wars shows. So we got a trailer for Mandalorian Season 3, trailer for Andor, and I forgot the third show. I think it's called Tales of the Jedi. It's an animated show. I'm excited for Mandalorian Season 3, of course, but I was curious if you're actually interested in any of those shows, or...
Well, I think you briefly talked about Andor before. I'm not that well versed on what that is, but I did binge the two episodes of two seasons of the Mandalorian when I was in America recently. So I was way behind the rest of everybody, and of course I got spoiled everything. But that's the nature of the beast whenever you can't really watch something, because I'm in Japan and they have all these weird rules about getting Disney Plus over here, and I was just like, I don't know.
Oh, weird. Before you watch Season 3, you should watch the Book of Boba Fett, by the way.
Oh, well, might be too late for that.
Okay. If you can find a way, there are several Mandalorian-centric episodes in that show that are somewhat important.
And then Andor, as far as I know, I think you mentioned before that it's like something to do with the Death Star or somebody associated with that.
So, you saw the movie Rogue One, right?
Yeah.
Do you know who Cassian Andor is from that movie? He's the main character, played by the actor's name is Diego Luna, I think his name is.
Oh, I mean,
okay,
it seems like 20 years ago I watched that movie. I know it wasn't 20 years ago.
It's a while ago. So Rogue One is how they got the plans for the Death Star. But Cassian Andor got to the rebellion in that film, and I'm having a hard time remembering the film because it's been so long since I've seen it. But
20 years ago, yeah.
yeah. This show is about him before that movie.
Oh, okay.
And I believe it's going to be 3 seasons. I can't remember, but...
Yeah. I'm kind of like Star Wars. I don't know if I'm Star Wars'd out or not yet. I'm kind of like... I like that they're doing all these extra things, but I'm kind of like... Can I just like have a break from Star Wars?
So, yeah, you and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum, I think. I'm not Star Wars out, but, and you know I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I've been a huge Star Wars fan. But my biggest problem with Star Wars at the moment is, first of all, kind of subpar content, like as an overall whole. I think The Mandalorian is fantastic.
Yeah,
but everything else, there's a big, I thought Rogue One was a really good movie too. But other than that, there's been like major flaws with so much of what has come out so far, in my opinion. But I think the thing that's really getting me, and why I'm so excited about Andor, which I think is kind of a hot take because most people don't seem to be that hot on that. But for me, it's like original stuff. It's based off Rogue One, obviously, but Rogue One was also, for the most part, original compared to like all these other shows that keep going back to the Skywalker saga, and going back to characters we know, and like I'm sick of that. I don't get it. Give me new stuff. This is like such an enormous franchise, and you are wasting everything. I mean, I guess it's not wasting, but you're using all of your shows, all of your movies on, let's do more like the 10 characters that we know about. Why? Go 100 years in the future. Go 100 years in the past. Create all these new original stories. I mean, it's crazy to me that they haven't done that. Aside from, I mean, you have The Mandalorian, but even in The Mandalorian, you have Boba Fett and, like, you know, other callbacks to established characters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they did like a Greedo show, maybe I'd watch that.
Okay, but real story, real quick. Can you imagine?
Greedo show? Yeah.
Well, sort of. But what I'm thinking is, like, you know how Marvel has all their shows and stuff, but a few years ago, Netflix had the rights to make shows, and they made like adult Marvel shows. Imagine if they did an adult like bounty hunter underground show. Like, how cool would that be? Call it Jabba the Hutt. I don't know. Just have him running his crime enterprise and have all these cool bounty hunters doing all these cool things. Make it for adults. That would freaking sell, right? Like, who the fuck doesn't want to watch that?
I mean, Mandalorian kind of was like that for me. I mean, it was like super mature, but it had elements that was kind of a little bit darker, I guess.
I don't know that I would necessarily agree. I love the show. But, well, there's two things with it. First of all, it's, you know, a child could watch it fine, right? But primarily, we really don't focus on, like, the shady underground bounty hunting stuff much at all. I mean, you get a hint of that in the first season, I feel like. And actually in the Book of Boba Fett as well. But it's just, I feel like there's so much untapped potential there. And
it's still too maybe sanitized, I guess, maybe.
And then they had a game called Star Wars 1313, I think it was called, that got canceled. And it was supposed to be like that. And it's just so frustrating. And there was rumors a while ago of George Lucas making a live action TV show. They had so much film, like, already filmed for this. I can't believe they never actually released it. They canceled it. Or maybe they sold to Disney and they just got the rights to it. I can't remember the timeline because that was a really long time ago. But I know that they had like hundreds of hours of like actual footage for the live action show they were developing. And we lost that too. It's been kind of disappointing for Star Wars.
Well, this would be a good segue to our main topic, I think. Dark stuff. Grimdark in particular. Of course, seeing a Grimdark kind of version of Star Wars might be appealing for a lot of people, but just Grimdark in general, the genre, is kind of been thrown out there as this very nebulous genre. Even when I was doing Grim Tidings years ago with Rob Matheny, we often ran into authors who were supposed grimdark, quote-unquote grimdark authors that didn't know what grimdark was, or even identified themselves as grimdark. They didn't even think, I mean, I guess I'm grimdark if somebody says I am. So that's kind of one of the things people have kind of talked about a lot on the internet and interviews, stuff like that. What is Grimdark specifically? So let's kind of talk about what do you feel necessitates something that would be Grimdark?
I think that the problem here is that Grimdark is so subjective. You see so many different opinions everywhere, and I'm fully aware that my definition of a Grimdark is not necessarily what a lot of people would say. I think for me, it's the first point that I always need to, like, if I read a book or if I watch a show, the first thing I look at to see if it's grimdark might kind of be a weird thing, but I think, is it realistic? And what I mean by realistic is, in a situation where one of the main characters is in danger, do they always come out fine, or does something unexpected happen? In Game of Thrones, I'm not going to spoil anything, but like in Game of Thrones, plenty of characters die. We know that. And also, if they don't die, often they're like seriously maimed. And I think that is, to me, the first major essence of Grimdark. Like, is it unexpected? Can I not predict who's going to live and die just based on if they're a main character or not? Most fantasy that isn't Grimdark, you read the book or watch the show, you identify the main characters, and you're like, okay, well, they're going to be at the last episode or the last chapter, because that's how it typically is written in like regular epic fantasy. And so I think for me, a lot of Grimdark is the unexpected, but also the realistic. When someone is about to be like hanged, they actually get hanged. Like, there's not like a weird, oh my god, I just got free.
There's an arrow that flies out and hits the rope at the exact time, and they're free.
Right, exactly.
Robin Hood comes.
So I think that's my like major like factor, and I know that is a very strange place to start. A lot of people say, well, morally gray characters or like the really dark atmosphere, but
yeah, I think something I was just thinking, like we both play a lot of tabletop games, or have played a lot of tabletop games, and
right.
One difference would be, like, for example, Dungeons and Dragons is like typically hit points determine if you live or die, right? So if you have 120 hit points and a dragon breathes fire on you and it does 67 damage, you would still live, right? Well, I still got 60 something hit points left. But like in some like old school games, like there's a old school revival OSR games, and I think we played Mork Bore, or however you pronounce it, Mork Borg, and basically you just die one hit kind of thing. So maybe like Grimdark is kind of like no hit points fantasy. So people don't have hit points. It's like they get hit, they're dead. Oh, I got hit in the head by a dragon's claw. Okay, you're fucking dead. That's it. There's no like, saving that. Because in real life, yeah, if something the size of a dragon hits you in the face, it doesn't matter how much armor you're wearing, it will cave your head in. So I think realism or the at least within the laws of physics in our world, Grimdark kind of fits into that, I think.
I think that I might disagree and agree with you at the same time, because I agree that is like the realistic side, but I will also disagree because I can think of a few like major things that might kind of go against what you said. Think like Logan Nine Fingers from the First Law.
Yeah.
takes like brutal, just gets slammed on all the time and still like lives. But I think with taking all that damage per se, like the character is like the character, you feel it, the character feels it, and I think maybe that's kind of what makes it more grimdark, perhaps. In a lot of epic fantasy, people take like the same type of hits and then like I find they kind of shake it off. But I think in grimdark, if you are that character that survives through a lot, like you said with the dragon like hitting you or something, if they survive it, half the book I feel like they're going, or the show, they're going to be recovering from that or struggling with what happened. Which I think goes back to the realistic things. You know, maybe it's not entirely realistic that they survived, but they did survive, and the author or the writer of whatever medium we're talking here understands that and shows the punishing like ramifications of what actually happened. So like I do agree with what you're saying, but I also think that there's kind of like an allowance for people to also kind of survive things that maybe they realistically would too.
Yeah, I thought like I was thinking the other day about a story idea about this guy that just gets attacked by a dragon and gets like burned really badly, and like how the whole story is just him laying in a bed. You know.
So is that? I'm sorry, you said that was an idea?
That's just an idea I had, yeah.
Oh, you had? That's your idea. Oh, okay. That's you know, that'd be really interesting to read. Just the premise of like getting scorched and then like, you know, we all know about burns and how painful just a little burn is. And I think I'm sure you've read or watched something where someone gets like horrendously burned. But to add in the dragon
like
factor into it, I think that'd be really interesting.
It'd be like so like in, you know, House of the Dragon, right? All these people are getting scorched by dragons, but then you just have this one character that like survives getting scorched by a dragon, and just like how he deals with it, or if he can even be saved, or you know, that kind of thing. That'd be pretty grimdark, I think.
Really.
But the other thing you had mentioned briefly was the morally gray characters, and for me, like, I feel like there is some stuff I would consider grimdark that don't necessarily have all morally gray characters. Like, for example,
100%.
Ned Stark wouldn't be morally gray. He's about the, you know, most morally good character in modern fantasy, I think.
Right. So I just wanted to explain maybe what I meant by that, because so when you see morally gray, a lot of people mean they say morally gray, but they don't mean what it actually means. They say, oh, this book has a bunch of morally gray characters, and they assume or they mean that basically all the characters are assholes that are self-serving, right?
Yeah.
That's not what that is supposed to mean. It's supposed to mean that, like, there are bad people doing good or bad things to serve themselves, but at the same time, there are also good people doing good and bad things to help themselves, or you know, sometimes it's like, well, I have to murder this innocent person, but by doing that I save the whole world, or you know, situations like that. But I think you're right that a lot of people forget in, you know, most grimdark there's always the hardcore grimdark that like doesn't have any of this, but most grimdark has the good people. Like you said, Ned Stark is obviously like really, if you think about it, the Stark family is like
they're like stupidly good. They're just like good to the point of like, are you dumb?
It's true, and it gets. I will never hate on Game of Thrones because it's one of my favorite like series / worlds. But
Yeah,
there comes a point where it's like, my dude, what are you doing? Okay, Jon Snow. He's a perfect example. He keeps hearing about family members being like murdered in the worst ways, and then like he keeps seeing his brothers of the Night Watch. Remember, it's been a long time since I've read these books, but they're all criminals. They're all assholes basically that were like condemned to the North. So like, and he knows this. I want to say he's not an idiot, but he's an idiot because he keeps trusting all these people. He keeps seeing all this horrible behavior, and then, at the end of book 5, it catches up to him.
Yeah, I think one of the best examples of like a really gray character that works well, that's not just like a nihilistic asshole, would be like Jaime Lannister.
I love him.
He's one of the most conflicted. Like, people feel conflicted when they read about him because, I mean, on one hand, he fucks his sister and throws kids off towers, and then on the other hand, he has this awesome redemption arc where he like finds kind of a kindred spirit in Brienne and those kind of things. And I think he's one of the best examples. If you point to like a really good gray character who like he makes decisions based upon not just himself, but like the people he cares about also. So even though Cersei Lannister's like the biggest piece of shit in the whole story, probably, other than Joffrey maybe,
right?
He's still loyal to her, and that's a morally great decision. It's like, wow, if my sister is a piece of shit, but I love her still. So it's like a really, really, really complex character that I think really pinpoints what Grimdark can be, in that regards. It's like a great character.
I think someone that might highlight the more hardcore type, like the asshole that's just doing like the worst things ever for the good of the people. I think the first person I think of is Glokta from the First Law. That is like heart of hearts. It's hard for me to say like this guy's actually evil. Like, he does a lot of evil stuff, but his entire motivation the whole time is like, this is for the good of the country, basically. This is like for our people. We need to. I mean, yes, he is. I can't say that he's not evil, right? I don't know how much you've read of all the Abercrombie books, but I mean, he's not good.
Yeah,
but
I mean, he's a torturer, so I mean, that's
right.
part
But
of it.
he has that motivation. Like, he's not torturing people because he enjoys it. He's doing it because I think he does enjoy it a little bit, but statistically, because he's been crippled himself. But really, the motivation isn't, I'm getting off on doing this. It's like I gotta root out these secrets because the world needs to know what's happening here, to protect a big majority of people and the rulership.
Yeah, I think that's just one of the keys of good characters, is they have to be conflicted, and I think Grimdark gives a good way to show really conflicted characters with really realistic conflicts, not just like I have to save the princess or whatever. It's deeper, kind of deeper motivations everybody has, and deeper regrets, and these kind of different aspects. So one other thing that's come up, and I think me and you have talked about this a little bit, is the absence of hope. So a lot of people seem to think Grimdark is hopeless, but I think both me and you have said all the good Grimdark still has some, you know,
Yeah, I
inkling of hope
fundamentally
at
like.
least. Yeah.
Yeah, I fundamentally disagree that Grimdark is hopeless. I think, of course, you can look to the extreme examples. Beyond Redemption by Michael R. Fletcher. There is not hope in that book. But if and that's fine. It works in that book in that world.
Yeah.
But for a majority of Grimdark, there's certainly, if the world might be hopeless in a way, there's still plenty of hope with the characters. You look at, some people might argue that A Song of Ice and Fire and the first Law trilogy are not grimdark, but they are literally some of the founding fathers of the genre. And I will always say that they're grimdark. But even if you look at, I mentioned him earlier, Michael R. Fletcher. He has the darkest, most grim book. But even then, there's still, while it's not necessarily mentioned up front in like the book at all, really, there's still hope. You can tell people, otherwise the characters wouldn't be doing what they're doing. So, it's hard for me to actually point out an example of like a hopeless world because, or a book that's hopeless, or a movie, I guess. But because if there was actually like no hope, first of all, why would anyone bother to do anything? The reason people are doing anything in any book is because they have hope that they're going to succeed, right? So already we got hope because there's a goal. If there's a goal, well, you're going to hope that you succeed at your goal. And by that, then the hope kind of spreads around. And I think with hope goes the whole like good character kind of thing too. Like, not every character has to be a self-serving dickhead.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not realistic, and I think that's good for dark stories to still have good characters, because the reason, I don't know why you read Grimdark or watch it or play it. The reason I do is because I almost don't want to call it Grimdark. I just want to call it like realistic fantasy or sci-fi. It's just consequences happen, and that's refreshing. I like that.
Yeah, I think the difference for me is not necessarily hopeless, but maybe a better word would be bleak. I like bleak stories for some reason. Like stories where you think everything's going to turn out fine, and then at the end it's like, nah, everything sucks. and even to that point, you have characters that have hope, or they hope to stay alive, or they hope to save somebody, or whatever. But some of my favorite horror movies have like really bleak endings, where like you're like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of my favorite horror movies, and like the one girl gets away, but at the end of the movie, she's in the back of the truck and she's just going, ah, ha, 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 ha. Like forever, she's like mentally going to be scarred by this. So even though she escapes, and it's like, wow, okay, she got away, she's never going to be the same, because she just witnessed all her friends get brutally murdered and cut up and all this horrible stuff. So, like, the reason I like Grimdark is because of that horror element. I guess it's like I almost like to have elements of horror and elements of fantasy blend together, and I think Grimdark does that best for me. The feeling of not being able to escape a situation, or not being able to reach your goals easily, and then to have them snatched away from you, or those kind of things. some of my favorite recent horror movies are like Midsummer and The Witch. I think they're by the same guy. Uh, but yeah, really bleak endings. So
Right.
even though something happens where the character looks to have achieved, like, I've achieved something that wasn't my original goal, but I've achieved something. You're still like, wow, I feel like shit after watching this movie, and it kind of sticks with you. So I think for me, like, having fiction that sticks with me is probably why I like Grimdark so much, because it long after I read it or long after I watch it, I still remember, what happened. Where some stuff I
Okay.
don't remember.
Oh man, so yeah, you just hit the nail on the head right there. You remember what happened. My first experience with something that is I'll say for books, because I can't recall a game or a movie that I watched that was considered grimdark. That might have been this, but my first book that I read that was grimdark was the first Law trilogy, and the ending of that series blew me away because I was so hopeful that this one thing was going to happen. I was so looking forward to the resolution of this one thing, and then the complete opposite happens, and it tore me apart. I was like, oh my god, no way, that's so awful. I feel horrible for literally everybody. But at the same time, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world. It was just like no one's happy. um, and that sucks. And you're just like, oh shit, this is terrible. And I read that book. I mean, funny enough, I was just researching all this because I was writing a quick little article not article, but a blog post for Before We Go blog about a book that changed our life basically. Like, they're doing this whole series with different like authors and reviewers, and I did one myself, and for me it was The Blade itself. And so I was looking up dates. The Blade itself came out in 2006, and I read it in
Wow.
2007 because that's when I was in college. And I know that my best friend at the time gave it to me to read because I had actually quit reading fantasy altogether because I was so sick of laughing at it because of all the tropes and the cliches and predicting, like, event by event what was going to happen. And so I'd actually sworn off fantasy. I was like, okay, I'm done reading this because I just can't with being able to predict everything. And my friend gave me The Blade itself, and he was like, read this. And I made it through the first chapter and threw the book at him. And I said, I don't want to read this trash. What are you doing to me? Because the first chapter is Logan Ninefingers, the barbarian, fighting against impossible odds, surviving, falling off a cliff, surviving. And I was so pissed off by that. My friend was like, no, read the next chapter. If I'm going off memory, I think this first chapter was Logan. The second chapter was Gloctus' first scene, which is a just incredible chapter. So then I was into it. But the ending of that series, I read Last Argument of Kings when it released. I think they released them one a year. I think it was 2006, 7, and 8, if I remember right. But I might be wrong about Last Argument of Kings. So I read the first two books because they were both out when my friend introduced me to that author. I had to wait for the third book. But when that third book came out, it was 2008, I think. And I've never reread those books. I still remember some of the gut punch endings to that series. And that's incredible because I don't really remember much else that I've read since like way back then.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I've talked about, and I think me and Rob talked about when we were doing Grim Tidings was the what the fuck factor. A book that makes you say what the fuck, or a movie that makes you go what the fuck. That's usually the stuff that sticks with you. We're talking about Game of Thrones a lot, but I think the what the fuck thing for Game of Thrones was the scene where Cersei and Jaime are having sex, and then Bran catches them, and then he throws them off the tower. And I think from the book and the TV show, that's when people were like, "Holy shit, what kind of show is this?" And those are kind of things that you need in fiction, I think, that make it engaging and make it worthwhile. And I think Grimdark kind of does that in a way that appeals to me. The like like we talked about, totally unexpected things that happen, or just like weird stuff that you didn't expect, reveals that were unpredictable. So I've always liked stuff that's just like, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Thing, and that's a horror movie that's all about what the fuck,
Right.
Because people are paranoid and like, who's an alien, and then like some guy's head comes off and it becomes a spider, and you're just like, what is going on with this movie?
Yeah, I think that if you look back, and I'm not a film like history nerd, so I don't know like a lot of older films or anything, but as we discussed earlier, big Star Wars fan. If you think about Empire Strikes Back, and we all know the major reveal that happens at the end of that movie. People that have never seen those movies know the big reveal, right?
Yeah.
That's, Vader is Luke's father. And I think
Spoilers.
spoilers. For anyone who hasn't seen Star Wars. And again, like I said, everyone knows the twist already. It's just become such a big part of pop culture that so my brother has a girlfriend who she hasn't, well, now she has. She's been watching all the Star Wars stuff, but the last time she was up here, she hadn't seen any Star Wars. And my brother and I we always joke around, we'll say random lines from Star Wars, just as a joke to like response to different things. And like she knows half of them, right? So like I think that when you have something so memorable like Luke, I am your father, that really
Well, he doesn't actually say Luke, I am your father.
No, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's like Scotty beat me up.
Yeah.
Yes, he doesn't actually say the line, like that specific line, but that's what
that's what everybody
remember.
knows. Yeah.
Right.
With the Mandela effect or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's like you remember the line spliced together with like the line that came before it or something, and then like that is the line that people remember, but that's like never actually said. But not trying to be specific to the actual line. It's just like the reveal so shocking that like, I wasn't alive in 1977, so I don't actually know what it was like.
I wasn't alive either.
I've heard that it was like this insane thing. Like everyone was just absolutely blown away. And I think that while Empire Strikes Back isn't grimdark, it does have several really like grimdark elements to it that are pretty shocking, I think, especially for the time. If we're considering the time it was made, I don't know how many people's like hands were getting cut off, and in a movie like that, You know, like
I mean, now everyone's hands are getting cut off in every TV show. It's like every
right,
TV show they
right.
have
Yeah,
people getting their hands cut off.
exactly. It's like, you can watch a PG movie and people are losing their hands and stuff. But I think back then it was just like just some wild stuff that people weren't expecting necessarily. And I know people can cite plenty of other movies, I'm sure, back then that had things that happened. But um, I just think that something so popular, something that you want, especially after watching A New Hope, right? You watch A New Hope, you don't really expect it to go like a lot darker. And like, I don't think Empire Strikes Back is a super dark movie or anything, but like, it is significantly more like dark than A New Hope.
Yeah. Well, I think now's a good time to talk about a hope I have. Do you want to know my hope?
What is your hope, Phil?
Well, I have lots of them. But I hope everyone has enjoyed this podcast so far. So we're going to shift over to our game now. So each episode, we're going to have my character or John's character fight a random monster from Dungeons and Dragons. And these monsters are going to significantly outmatch our characters. So right now, our characters are level 1. And today, John is going to take his paladin into the arena of death and fight an air elemental. Air elemental is a rather dangerous opponent for a first level character. It's dangerous for 10th level characters even, can be. So the way this is going to work is similar to roguelite type RPGs. So if anyone knows about roguelites, they're basically games where you die over and over and over again. And as you die, you may unlock something new, or you may get something. Even though you die, you get some minor reward that helps you the next time. So we're going to see how long John can last against this air elemental. And if he can survive one round, then we're going to roll on a chart, and he's going to get one free random item. This could be something really shit, or it could be something worth some money. I don't know. If he can survive 2 rounds, then we're going to give him a level up, so he'll be level 2 next time you see his character. If he can survive 3 rounds, we're going to give him a magic item from a random loot table. And if he can survive 4 or more rounds, then he'll get all 3 of those things. So my goal is to kill him as fast as possible. His goal is to survive. This is very Grimdark, so very appropriate. So, John, if you want to introduce your character quickly.
Yes, so I am a paladin of the name of Captain Bernadelle Reiner. And Phil and I both took the method of rolling just a straight up 3d6
Hardcore.
and putting the stats down the line without even thinking about where they were going to go. And whatever the luck was going to be, that's what we got. And I have no hope for my character.
No hope?
At all.
That's very Grimdark of you.
This is true. I mean, I have a 4 in dexterity, so, and an 8 in constitution.
What's your hit points?
I have 9, which is insanely
9.
low for a paladin.
Oh, shit. Alright, so you can't see our beautiful arena, but I have an arena set up on Roll20, and then my character's sitting on a throne watching from below, giving a thumbs up. Can you survive? So we're going to start round 1. So let's roll initiative.
This is spectacular because I get a -3 in initiative, and somehow I got a 15.
Okay, that's pretty good. So you're gonna get the hit first, looks like.
All right.
But let's see. I gotta roll my. Holy shit! Air Elemental has 20 decks. Jeez. Did not know that. All right, so I'm gonna roll.
Great.
Wow. Still
And,
sucked.
Got 7. Somehow
Yeah.
I beat the initiative. I don't think that's going to matter if we're being completely honest with each other.
That's true. Hit me with your best shot. Come on.
I got a natural 1 with my greatsword swing, so.
Nice. Critical miss.
What a way to start the Grimdark episode with the role playing, and of course, the first roll that matters in combat is a natural 1.
So the paladin stumbles forth right into my welcoming windy arms. I'm gonna bash the shit out of you now. Let's do a slam. So slam is a +8 to hit. It does 2d8 plus 5 damage. Alright, that sounds pretty good.
Great.
I'm gonna kill you in 1 hit.
I assumed that would be the case, but maybe we'll get lucky and it'll roll just as good as the last time. Hey!
Alright, a 9.
And how much was the attack?
Well, I got 14 strength, so it's a +2. So do I add that to 9 plus 2? 11.
I thought you're saying he had a +8 to his attack.
Oh yeah, this says +8 to hit. Yeah.
Yeah, so he got a 17. I have, because of my shitty dexterity, he hit me. Damn it.
Oh, nice. 2d8 plus 15. All right. Or not 2d8 plus
matter.
15. 2d8 plus 5.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say if it's +15, I'm dead already.
2d8 plus.
I'm pretty sure I'm dead here anyway, but
Let's see. Just for shits and grins. That's
okay, so
17. Clank. The wind elemental smashes the paladin in his head. Collapses his. Hey, this is the dragon. The dragon analogy I had earlier.
Yes.
He smashes his helm against his head and crushes his skull like an aluminum can.
That's rough.
The paladin falls over stiff and shits his pants. The end. Yay! I won.
Alright, well that went just about as well as I assumed.
One round.
One round. What table are we rolling on for that, by the way?
You just go. You made it 1 round, which is the bare minimum. So you'll get a random non-magical item. So.
Okay.
All right, John, you have received salted fish. Congratulations! Yay!
Yeah, very exciting.
It took a long time for you to get this salted fish, but
We had to find something to roll on.
you can trade it. You can trade it for something better next time.
All right.
It's a very special salted fish. All right, well, that concludes our first episode, and at the end here, we'll let you plug anything you want to plug. For me, we have the Grimdark Fiction Readers and Writers Facebook group, which I manage, and if anyone wants to talk about Grimdark, that's a great place to talk about it. And in addition, we have negative-hp.com, which is my website, which will be, the podcast will be featured over there. And it'll also be on all your regular podcasting services. Spotify, Apple, and Stitcher. John, anything you'd like to share?
I am an author of Grimdark Fantasy myself. I just released my first novel the Trials of Ashmount, which you can find on Amazon for 99 cents on Kindle, and it's also on Kindle Unlimited for free. So go check it out, maybe.
Okay, so that concludes our first episode of Rough Characters Podcast. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.